Welcome to a new season, a brand new season of 15 Minutes with Andy, and hopefully you've caught up on our first two seasons. A lot of great guests, terrific people, and we hope to have more of the same here, and I know we will in season number 3. Just quickly, for those of you that are listening for the first time, the genesis of this idea was kind of born out of so much hate and negativity in our world, and I think I got fed up with it and kind of tired of hearing about it. And I thought, what can I do, or what can we do? Not me. This isn't about me. It's about our great guests. What can we do here at with a podcast that I wanted to start and bring some more positivity and joy and happiness into the world and get great people to talk a little bit about all of that. And so that's where 15 Minutes with Andy is born. Our guests are longer than 15 minutes on most occasions. The 15 minutes just came up with everybody getting their 15 minutes of fame, kind of a cliche thing. So if you're listening for the first time, that's what this podcast is all about. If you are a regular listener or multiple times, welcome back as well as we begin this new journey together. And a great first guest. I've literally known you, Logan Bloir, since pretty much you were born, at the very least as a very young toddler in the Eden area, right?
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you so much for having me today.
Thanks for doing this today.
Of course.
So Logan Bloir, I kind of gave a little bit away about where you're from, but tell us a little bit about your background, where your story began.
Yeah, so I grew up just off of State Route 34, just outside of Blakesley. I attended elementary school, middle school, high school, all from Eden, Northwest, where both my parents went. And I got my undergraduate degree from Indiana Tech in Fort Wayne, Indiana. I'm currently pursuing my master's degree, also from Indiana Tech, and that's where I currently live and work, is Fort Wayne. Fort Wayne area.
What was it like? People think the word idyllic, I guess, comes to mind when you're thinking about where we live and grew up in Williams County. What was that childhood, adolescent years like for you living in Eden?
Yeah, it was a lot of getting dirty, living in the countryside, being involved in like sports, being involved in 4-H. It was lots of, like adventures, running around outside, getting dirty, playing football, hitting baseballs, it was just a lot of like family oriented stuff. I would say that my family's very close-knit. I could not tell you the countless amount of times my siblings and I would get into trouble. But yeah, very, very small town. For those that don't know, Eden, one stoplight, residency of maybe 800 if we're lucky. So yeah, very, very small town. Yeah.
For the most part, would you describe it as a happy childhood?
Yes, I would say that I definitely had a happy childhood, yeah.
Okay. So I guess we flash forward through all those years, and you mentioned you're doing all of those things, and you also have a really good end to your high school journey in one of the sports that you were in. You excelled in track and field. When did you know that this was something that you were pretty good at and had an opportunity to succeed in, and how did that take off for you? How did that blossom for you, track and field?
I've always known that I was a pretty speedy kid, especially in Little League Baseball. I would steal every single base. So I knew I was pretty speedy at like a young age. I didn't realize that I actually had like a real strong talent for track and field itself probably until my freshman year. Mark Blue was the head coach for track, and then the sophomore year, Terry Whitney then took his place when Mark retired. And yeah, just really developing like my body, actually going through like changes, going from like a boy to a man. Like there was a lot of power, there was just a lot of big changes, and I think just like confidence in myself, and I think that's what like springboarded me there, because I didn't really have like a breakout until my junior year, and then like you said, then I finished off really strong my senior year.
And what, a top 3 finish your junior year in the 100, right?
Correct, yes.
Okay, so you knew that a pretty big athletic goal and dream for you and lots of other kids is within reach your senior year. So a lot of a lot of went into it in that off season in preparation for your senior year, right?
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. When the end of that junior year, like getting third place in the 100 at state, I got off the podium and I was like, I'm going to win this thing next year. Like I was in that moment, I was so determined that like, I'm going to do it next year. I actually did a lot of weightlifting over the summer. I did a lot of speed training. My senior year was actually the first year that I did not participate in a fall sport, specifically because I was like, I just want to do all track workouts. I want to continue, like this explosion training, the speed training, speed endurance. So I was just so determined, like nothing was going to stop me for my senior year.
And your times then, so you're running more as spring finally rolled around your senior year, not taking anything away from some of the competition, because there were good runners in your, and it wasn't just the 100. 100 is where you ended up winning state. You were
Correct.
Involved in the 200 and in relays, right?
Yeah, the 4x400, yeah.
So, and there were other competitors that were good, but at that time you're running to better times and get personal time, PRs, and just improve and get better come tournament time too, right?
Absolutely, yeah. Every meet is important, in my opinion, but I definitely think that there was more emphasis on like the invitationals for myself, like Tuesday, Thursday meets where we would only compete against, 2 other teams. I definitely took serious, but I wasn't there to go for a win. Like you said, I was there to better my time, to work on my blocks, to work on my form, holding top end speed, and then preventing injury. That was the biggest thing. So then, yeah, once districts, regions, state came around, then I was ready.
So you're able to get back to state and this time get to the pinnacle by winning the 100, but you were also supposed to be a part of the 200 as well.
Yeah.
And we're dealing with, you mentioned an injury, the quad injury, right? What did that, so what was the decision process there in, okay, we're not going to run the 200? Was it just because you thought I have a better chance at winning state in the 100?
So actually, like the 100 prelims went first on Friday, and at Jesse Owens, it was very clearly unmarked after the finish line what we were supposed to do. And with the 100 being a straightaway race, there's no curves, but there's typically, like, the officials will clearly tell you before the race starts, this is how you're going to finish, this is where you're going to exit, etc. Well, there was a big media crew at the finish line, and then there was like a big rope off that you could not see from the start. So I mean, you're going like as hard as you can. You are not thinking about the end of the race. You are thinking about the race, getting through the line, making it to finals for the next day. The runner to the right of me, like we both finished. I'm finishing straight on, but the runner to the right of me notices the media crew, notices the rope, and he goes to the left and runs into me. So that's when I like first initially tweaked it, and it was just so sore, like it just hurt, like it just was such a sharp pain. And I was freaking out knowing that I made the finals for the next day, but that I had the 200, and I still decided to run the 200, and it was just an absolute disaster of a prelim. It was so terrible. I actually didn't fare up too bad, but like for what I had been producing all season, it was very underwhelming. Didn't make the finals in the 200. So, I talked to Terry, my coach, and I was like, Whip, we have to do something. And thankfully, his son was there, who's an athletic trainer, and we just did all sorts of stretching, all sorts of massaging, KT tape, all of like the icy hot, I literally had somebody catering specifically just to me, because Whip said, this is not going to stop you. You're going to win. And they just had, nice dinner, good night's sleep, woke up the next day, pre-race routine. It was still a little shaky through warm-ups, but I think, after getting, like I said, my pre-race and everything ready, I just had the mindset that, like, I'm willing to lose my entire leg for a win.
Plus adrenaline takes over too.
Correct.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what's that moment like? You take us through that race, the just under 11 seconds, 10.73, is that right?
That's correct, yeah.
And second was 10.74, so he was pretty fast too. But take us through those under 11 seconds and then what it was like after winning the 100 and knowing that you had accomplished those sports dreams and goals that you had set for track and field.
Yeah, so the gun went off, and I've always been like known for having blinders. Like, there's nobody ever that's going to cross in front of you. You just need to stay in between your two lines. So have blinders. Nothing else around you matters except for what's in between your lines. About 30 meters in, I could see somebody 2 lanes to the left of me, and I'm like, oh my gosh. I'm like, what the heck? Like, I've never... And it was like, I had a great start. I had a powerful start. But that was for the first time that I think I've ever been thrown off my game just because I could see somebody who was ahead of me so early in the race. But although it caught my mental attention, nothing changed in terms of my legs, my arms, like my lift of my knee drive. Like, there was nothing stopping me. And then, like, I noticed that everybody started to fall back, except for the eventual runner-up of the race. We just stayed neck and neck the entire time. And as we got closer, we were probably maybe 80, 85 meters in. It was the very outer body experience, almost kind of. Like, I started leaning, 15 meters before the line. That's way too soon. But, like, I've seen so many videos of it afterwards now. The lean got me the win. If I wouldn't have leaned, I would have lost, more than likely. And just, I swear, because it was such a close photo finish, waiting for the scoreboard to show who won, that was the longest, like, minute and a half of my entire life. I was like, oh my gosh, they're never going to show it. Like,
and it felt longer than it was, I'm
right,
sure.
Yeah, and then just seeing, like, the name pop up, Bloir from Eden, 1073, first place, and the crowd from Eden that came, like, my family, friends, administrators, just them seeing it, and they just outburst into a huge scream of applause. Like, it was crazy. Like, I started crying. Like, I couldn't believe it. Like, it was incredible. Yeah.
Yeah. And that's the thing. And to tie a little bow on that is, being around this area, that is one thing communities like Eden do a great job of in supporting their athletes that go on and compete, whether they're individual athletes, team athletes, or whatever it might be. Community support is always big, and in probably none bigger in our area than Eden.
Yeah, absolutely. That year, there were 2 athletes from Eden who made it to state, myself and then Cameron Reed in the long jump. And it was just us 2 athletes, and there were probably mid-50s, low 60s amount of supporters just to watch, the driving, over 3 hours to watch one jump for 4 jumps and then watch another run for 10 seconds. Like, that absolutely blows my mind. But I'm so overwhelmed and honored that many people, supported us too.
So that's a story in itself, is, you live a dream, and I mean, that could be a podcast alone, that you've lived a dream and you've won a state championship, and end of story, which I would hope it never be an end of a story at 18 at that time. But, a lot of people don't get to those kind of heights and whatever they might do in their life. But your story is far from over, and was far from over, because it would be safe to say, at least from the outside looking in and knowing you a little bit now, or through your whole life, but knowing where your journey has gone, you were happy with what had happened and transpired, but not complete, not Correct. Completely happy, right? Is that fair to say?
Yeah.
Why is that? Tell our podcast listeners why that is. Let's dive into that.
So yeah, like you said, like, it was just like a cloud 9 moment, and thinking back on it now, yeah, like, it was not the, oh my gosh, this is amazing sort of story. People told me all the time, like, we are so proud of you, like, you've done so much, and just in my heart, I didn't feel like people were proud of me. So I didn't announce it immediately, but after a year of college, so it was the summer of 2019. I was 19 years old, and I came out to my family and friends as gay. So it was just, I had such a hard time believing that people were proud of me, because I know how many people in society perceive the LGBTQ community. And I firsthand know how people in small towns, people in Eden, have talked about queer people. And so it was very hard for me to believe that people were truly proud of me, because I am a queer person. So
what was that moment like?
It was really hard. I actually started having conversations with really, really close friends when I was in high school. Like, I wanted to win state more than anything, but there are very few people that know that the spring of 2018, as I was preparing for graduation, that I was also really struggling to live my fullest, And
that's hard.
Yeah, it's so hard. It gets so hard.
Whatever somebody's fullest is, but in your case, and you already mentioned it, and living in small town society and know what, like you said, what backlash could be coming, that has to be hard.
Yeah. And so, like, some people did know, because I've already had conversations with them, but, like, telling my family and then, like, telling the world, like, I told myself, you're at a point now where it's okay to not have everybody. And I have lost people. And ultimately, that is okay for me, because if they could not accept me and love me for what I brought to the table, if that one tiny facet of my life is enough for someone to walk away, they deserve to keep walking.
I agree. 100% agree. And you've got a great family. And I got to believe that was so key for you. I mean, as hard as it was, knowing your family, all facets of it, as well as I do, that had to be the most, I guess I can't put into words. I'll let you say, what were the emotions giving and receiving in that conversation?
So I actually did not have a conversation with my family. I actually wrote like a 10-page letter.
Okay.
I wrote like a 10-page letter, and
you just found that easier, and you could get more out and get everything.
Yes, and I think that I didn't want to have the back and forth, because I was so afraid. I didn't want to have that back and forth conversation. I just thought it was easier to just get everything out, and if they have questions, we can talk about it later. So I wrote a letter, and I put it in my childhood bedroom, and I texted my sister, and I said, hey, there's something I need you to get. So she read it first, and then she shared it with the family, and I'm sorry.
No, you're fine. Absolutely not. This is absolutely take your time. We're going nowhere. Take your time.
Thank you. And my parents called me a couple hours later, and seeing, Mom on my phone after I told my sister to read this letter, I felt my heart stop, because I'm like, what is she going to say to me? Mm-hmm. Is this the last phone call I'm ever going to have? And the support that my mom and my dad gave on the other end of that phone, it was just something that I knew in my heart that, like, they were going to love me no matter what, but there's always that tiny, like, what if, like, what are they telling my sister? What are they telling my brother? Like, what is the truth? And that phone call was probably the rawest conversation I've ever had with my parents. And it's one that I will literally remember forever. And to say that I am proud of my parents for listening is an understatement, but at the same time, I can't be proud of them because they're just unconditionally loving their child. You know, like, I know in the beginning they didn't fully understand, and that's fine, and, like, they're still learning things, but, like, just for them to be so open and willing to learn and willing to listen, and just for them to not bat an eye in that moment, like, it was, like, it's just indescribable.
And I'm sure, Logan, you played that conversation out 1,000 different ways in your head, too, didn't you? Best case, worst case scenario. We all do the pro-con type moments. I know, in just knowing your family as well as I do through the years, that one of the biggest things that they all said to me was, we're just so happy that he's happy. Kind of those words. We're just so happy that it can be the real Logan now. And did you feel that? Did you feel that now as time had passed, that, you know what, I've taken that first step and now I can start to show and blossom into the real me?
Yeah.
I guess, because in a lot of facets, it wasn't the real you. There were shades of you coming out, is that fair to say, but not the real you until after that moment.
Yeah. I definitely think that there was a lot of, especially in, like, my teenage years, there was a lot of, like, deflecting. There was a lot of hiding, almost like, let me do whatever I can for people to like me just in case they do know. And then, I mean, like I said, it's been a little over 3 years since I've come out, and it's easier, but it's still, like, a process. I think because, like, for me being 22 and only being out for 3 years, I don't want to say, like, I'm still figuring myself out, but I think because I've had such a long period of time where I've been living and acting so that people will perceive me a certain way, it's like, I don't want to say an identity crisis, but, like, it kind of is. Like, I'm still every single day learning things about myself that, like, oh my gosh, you know, when I was 15, I would have handled this way differently, you know, and navigating certain conversations are still hard. And, like, even with my family, you know, like, even having that super deep conversation, being like, hey, I'm gay, you know, and then, you know, a year and a half later saying, well, I have a boyfriend, like, that was still very hard. Like, and I know someday it's going to be so easy, and I'm going to look back, I'm going to be like, oh my gosh, I was just, you know, being scared for no reason. But, like, yeah, there's still a lot of things that are just difficult still. Like, it's so much easier now, yes, but some things are just still so hard. Like, you know, like, my brother, you know, has never had to be like, hey mom, hey dad, you know, like, I have a girlfriend, you know. My sister has never been like, hey, I have a boyfriend, you know. So just things like that, you know, like, so.
Outside of the family, what was, because you did it on social media, so what was the feedback reception like from people you already knew that were already in your world and they reached out to you, the some that did? And you already mentioned that there are some that have left the party, and in your estimation and in your mind, good riddance to them, right? So what was that reaction like, and what was that feeling coming back from people that were either friends of the family or friends of yours or whatever they may be? What has that been like from day one to where we're at now?
It was so overwhelmingly positive. There were some that I knew that I never had to question, but still at the same time, like, it meant a lot to like, hear that. I actually received a lot of apologies from people who have ever made like a reference or have, like, you know, made jokes that are harmful towards the LGBTQ community, you know, like, around me. And there were some people that said, like, I would have never known. And there were some people that, like, well, yeah, I mean, I kind of knew. So, I mean, like, it was so different, but it was also, like, affirming, being like, you're so different in such a perfect way. Like, I love you no matter what, type of thing. And, like, it meant a lot. 'Cause, like I said, just sitting there being like, oh my gosh, if I hit post, my life is going to change. Like, regardless of how people react to it, no matter what, I can't go back.
Have you had people, whether they be from this community or outside, that are in your new world once you got to college at Indiana Tech? And have you had people respond that say thank you for doing that and being brave enough and courageous enough to do that, but not just saying thank you, but also maybe seeking you out now for a little advice on how to do it? That they're living a similar type of journey that you went on. Have you had that reaction?
Yeah, there are so many different communities in the world. There's so much intersectionality in the world. Everybody's different and nobody lives the same exact life. Not from Eden, but other Northwest Ohio communities, people have reached out to me and said, hey, I'm also living the same reality as you, but I know that I can't. Like, how do you navigate that? And I know that my experiences are not cookie cutter. They're not the same for everybody. So all I can do is offer what's worked for me, offer my support, and there's no timeline. Like, if you are, 19 and like me, and that's your time to come out, that's your time to come out. If your time to come out is when you're 12, you come out at 12. If your time is to come out at 55, you come out at 55. There's no right or wrong. And if you never come out and you, like, that is also fine. You do not owe an explanation to anybody. And that's always what I've tried to tell people, especially, some of my college friends. Like, you just do not owe. You feel like you do because, like, you love your family so much and they've supported you through everything. And that's just the one thing that I've told people that have reached out to me is you do not owe anybody anything. You owe yourself self-respect. You owe yourself love, and you deserve happiness.
Absolutely. Those are true words for anybody, no matter what.
Right.
So we've always lived in a love world, hate world. I mean, there's always been that push-pull of love-hate. It feels like that world has gotten more hateful and divisive. I can pinpoint a year, and anybody that's listening can do the math. I've gotten more hateful and divisive since 2016, in my opinion. But what's that been like to navigate being a member of the LGBTQ community and doing it in a world that is, quite frankly, growing not just for your community, not just for the LGBTQ community, but for minorities in general? What's that been like to navigate through that kind of a landmine, I guess, for lack of a better word? What's that been like?
Yeah. So very, very first off, facing adversity as an out gay man in America has really made me check my privilege. That although I do face adversity that heterosexual people do not face, I am still privileged in many other ways in terms of, I am a white man in America. I was brought up in a financially stable household with a family unit that was tight-knit and was not broken. So in many ways, I am still very privileged. And with all of this hate that is spreading in the world, it's really made me check myself and be like, wow, there are things that I've done or said that are hateful. And it's really inspired me to do better. And I know that I'm not perfect. Nobody is. But to me, it's so important because I know that if the roles were reversed, I would want that support. I would want someone to speak out against hate. So I would say the biggest thing that I've learned is that no matter who you are, whether you're someone of a different race, ethnicity, religion, sexual orientation, whether you have a disability, like, you deserve to be here just as much as the next person does. And that, like, we're all in this together. Great
advice for anybody, and all of us. Just if we all do better, those two words right there, just do better.
Right.
Let's take that wave and run with that.
Right. And I think, sorry to add to that,
No, you're
I think,
fine.
like, there's there's such a big like misconception about doing better. People think that because they're nice to somebody that they're doing better. You can be nice to somebody's face and then you can still be harmful to them in social situations. You can be harmful to them in political situations. So like you need to evaluate, am I being nice or am I being intentional? And I think on top of that, that's what I've learned is how to be more intentional, not being nice. You can be intentional and not like somebody, but the intentional is giving them the respect that they deserve, where being nice is you're just putting up a front. So I think we need to be intentional and not be nice, and that's how we do better.
So we mentioned the track angle, but there's always been other interests that you'd had growing up, and you've taken, this is kind of a way to get to where you're at now in life. So you've had other interests, and you've parlayed a lot of those interests into what you're doing now. Why don't you let our listeners know what you are doing now with your life here? You got an entire lifetime in front of you at 22 years old. What's going on now, and where are you going on this journey career-wise and interest-wise? What do you like to do, and what do you want to do?
Yeah, so I've always been super active, and music has always been a major part of my life. I've taken piano lessons with Nancy Gallahue for my entire childhood. Music has been a huge part of my life. When I was in high school, I was a part of Eden's musical productions. But then, like I said, track has just been like my thing. So now that I am retired from track, since that hat is now hung up, I actually do marketing for the Fort Wayne Dance Collective in downtown Fort Wayne. And I actually, this is probably my third month now of dancing. I dance now just because, like I said, that keeps me active, but then it still involves the music and everything. And just recently, I auditioned for a show in Fort Wayne, and that show is Kinky Boots, and I am cast as an angel. And for people that are not familiar with that storyline or those characters, an angel is a supporting drag queen role.
Was that a movie?
There is like a movie adaptation to it.
That's what I was thinking.
Yeah,
and I was thinking Kate Winslet might be in that. I'm not putting you on the spot.
Yeah, sorry, I'm not sure.
I'm a Kate Winslet fan, so that's why she jumped into my head, and I think she might be in that. So if anybody's listening, check out that film adaptation and let me know if Kate Winslet's in it. So you're living your best life and enjoying life right now. Is that safe to say?
Yeah, I think
for the most part.
Yeah, I think like right now I'm just trying to like learn as much as possible and take as much in right now, if that makes sense.
So you live in Fort Wayne. Mm-hmm. Is Fort Wayne home now? Do you still consider Eden home, or is it a marriage of the two?
I would say it's a marriage of the two. Anywhere that anybody lives is never going to be perfect. There are parts of Eden that are not home anymore. There are households in Eden that are not home anymore. But there are areas of Fort Wayne that will never be home. So it's definitely a balance. I definitely have found my people in Fort Wayne that support me endlessly. We would probably drive everybody crazy if my Fort Wayne crew came to Eden. But they're definitely a family there, not friends. They're definitely a family, yeah.
Okay. You ready for speed round? You said
ready.
You were ready. You've heard a few of these.
I'm ready.
And everybody gets a chance to answer these.
Yeah.
All right. What's your favorite word?
My favorite word right now is probably hero.
Okay.
Yeah.
Least favorite word?
Different. I forget. Am I allowed to elaborate on these or no?
You can elaborate as much as you want.
Okay. I would definitely different is my least favorite word because there's such a negative outlook on that word. People think like, oh, you're different. Like you're not worthy. You're not in. You're not cool. Whatever. And being different is so incredible, and that can that can be so many different things, and that means so many things to different people. And I would just say I don't like it because of society's outlook on that word.
Okay. Sound or noise that you love?
Sound that I really love, I have 2 guinea pigs. So those are like my pet babies.
Okay.
When they squeak, like they're like talking to me, that's my favorite sound.
Sound or noise that you hate?
A fork on a plate.
Just dragging it?
Yeah.
Okay. Or just clinging? Just
like the scraping.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So you have a profession now.
Yes.
What's a profession other than your own that you would like to attempt? Or that you thought would be kind of cool?
So much of when I was probably 13, 14, 15, I was so dead set on myself being an architect. I love buildings and the way that, like, I'm not sure why, I've just always loved that. That is something that I've never, ever counted out. I mean, now that I have, a degree and I'm pursuing a master's degree, which have nothing to do with architecture, it might be a little out now, but that is something that if I were ever to go get another degree, that is something I would totally want to try and get back into, architecture.
60, 70 plus years from now, when you're still walking the earth, this is kind of one of those big picture questions. Yep. How would you like to be remembered?
As a free spirit. Like, I don't want anybody to remember me as someone who was scared. I don't want people to remember me as someone who was so defensive, because I've been both of those things. I've been scared, I've been defensive. I just, as a free spirit, like, I genuinely am just learning to just slow down and just enjoy where I'm at right now. I was so stressed about what my future would look like. And yes, I think about it. I have goals, but like, I have goals for today. I have goals for this week. I have goals for next year. I have goals for 10 years from now. But I'm really learning to not let those control me and just live. Like, I want people to remember me as that free spirit. But then on the flip side, this might be a little hard to understand. I also don't want people to remember me as that gay person. That is just one tiny sliver of who I am. And that is a part of me that I absolutely love and I've learned to love. But also, if that's what you remember me by, you didn't take the time to get to know me. So that's why I want people to remember me as like this carefree spirit, not as that one gay person, if that makes sense.
Makes 100% sense. And that's a great way to end it. Thank you for doing this. I know it's still probably somewhat raw and not completely easy to do. I'm so thankful that you said yes to do this, and I hope people walk away from this and maybe in some instances thinking something completely different than what they did before, or if not, being, I don't know, more loving and caring. And boy, the world could sure use a lot of that. That's for sure. Very brave and courageous of you, first to take that step out on your own and come out and now live your, like I said earlier, your best life, your full life, a complete life, a happy life.
Correct.
I think that's very, very cool. And that's a good lesson for all of us, no matter what age. So thank you for doing that with me today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
I appreciate that. Logan Bloir has been our guest this time on 15 Minutes with Andy. And I'm going to steal a little bit of his thunder earlier and maybe tweak it a little bit and say, as we wrap it up, let's all see if we can be a little bit better, do a little bit better, be kind to someone today on your journey. And then you never know what their journey they're on as well. And our world could surely use a lot of that. We'll continue with more on Season 3 as we continue this journey together on 15 Minutes with Andy, the podcast. Have a great day.